just want to go over real quick. We're coming to the close of it, but it's not actually closing. I mean, I use the title "Close the Sale," but closing is done throughout the entire process. It's not something that just happens at the end. I know in real estate, whenever you think of closing, you think of this is whenever they sign everything and all the paper, and that's fine. But whenever you're looking at the sales process and the process of closing a deal and ensuring that you get the sale, it actually starts from the very beginning. So I put it at the end because this is what draws and brings everything together. And if you do everything the right way throughout the entire process, you gain focus, you understand what their situation is, how you benefit it, why that's important, and you're able to communicate really well and ask the good questions, communicate throughout the entire process, keep people up to date on where they're at in the process, all of those things, you can actually go through, frame the offer, and close the deal without having objections because you answer all of those objections through the process. So when it comes down and it comes time to whenever you actually think about solidifying the deal and closing the sale, you can actually do it without having all the objections if it's done the right way. And that's just done throughout the process. The reason we have objections in any type of sale is a result of fear. They are afraid they're either making the wrong decision, they have some sort of anxiety that leads to fear about something involved in the pricing, in the product, or in the presentation. Those are the three areas typically that you gain objections from. And you can actually avoid those objections throughout the entire process, like I said, by answering the questions. So I'm going to focus and draw us back to the beginning, because closing the sale starts with your mindset. It starts with the mental models process. And I updated it for you in this document to add a few extra steps so you can see a little more of the detail in the process. First of all, you have the real world situation. You have your whatever experience that you're experiencing. And this is how it works in life as a whole. So this may help you in everything that you encounter. You then get feedback from whatever that experience is. And it kind of works like this. You have the experience, right? Which then you gain feedback from that, which leads you to make assumptions about that feedback. We don't, and this is a quote, I can't remember if I heard it somewhere or how I got it. I probably heard it from someone saying this. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. And that's what this whole mental models process is about. And that's why I go through it a lot with people, because I want people to become aware of how they think, because then you become aware of how your clients think as well, because it's the same exact process. And if you understand that I don't see things as it is, I see it as I am, the same goes with your client. They're not seeing the whole situation as the situation is. They don't see it the same way you do. They see it as they are. So it works the same way. You get that feedback on that, which then makes assumptions, which leads you to interpretations, right? Which takes you from interpretations, you end up hitting and targeting those motivations. Remember the 5 motivators that we went through the other week? The desires, drives, needs, dreams, and goals. That's where that comes in. So the interpretations target your motivations, which leads to meaning. And this whole process right here is what is called a mental model. And that's why I use the phrase on their mental models process. We have mental models about everything that we experience in life. Whenever you think about, if you're out and about shopping or doing whatever, and you decide, you know what, let's go eat. And you ask the question, where do you want to go eat? You approach that question with a mental model of how that conversation is going to go. The issue isn't so much that we have mental models, it's that we're not really aware of all of our mental models. And you can change your mental models by making 3 adjustments on it. Understanding what your mental model is, understanding what you're thinking, reframing it, and then living as though that reframing is actual reality. And that'll change literally the way you think. And I went through that, I think, a couple weeks ago too. But the mental models is, whenever I began to understand it, I read the book on it, psychology book on it, which I was like, okay, this is deep. And it was a deep dive into language and the way we think and our mental models. And as I did that, I wanted to simplify it. That's why I put it this way, right? The assumptions that we have, the interpretations of those experiences lead to the motives, which then leads to us creating meaning and defining something as either good or bad, right? Which leads then to decisions that we make based on an anticipated outcome. Those decisions lead to actions, which lead to outcomes. Which lead to new experiences. And that's the cycle. The reason I bring that back up is because closing a sale starts with a specific mindset. And there's 3 things that are involved in that mindset. And the first one is this. It's a mindset of making it personal. The second one is a mindset of making it purposeful. And we're going to break these down a little bit. And then the third one is having a yes and mindset. Let me say this first, though. And I put these notes at the top of the page. 1, ABC, always be closing. That is the mindset that the close starts at the beginning. It's not just something that takes place at the end. It's a process that you're going through throughout the entire sale, which leads into those mental models. I was working with a salesperson who was always asking, okay, so what do I need to do? What do I need to do? Should I do this or should I do that? And it was a constant asking, right? And one of the things I was working with him on is to get past the idea that you have to be told what to do from someone else and start moving in the direction that you're making those decisions, being creative. That's why I talked about sales being a creative process a couple weeks ago, where you get to create and guide the process. Because if we're in the mindset of always asking what to do next, then we're always waiting for the client to tell us what to do. Which then means we get lost in things they don't understand about the process. Because there's a specific process that we go through when we're selling that our clients don't fully understand. They think they do, but they don't really fully understand it. And our job is to be the guide, the facilitator of that sale, to guide them through that process. That's right, to guide them through that process. And if this salesperson in particular that I was working with was always asking, okay, so what do you like? And it was never really getting to the core issue of what the problem was. So he happened to be getting stuck at the very beginning stage and not being able to get past that because he was always looking for an answer instead of trying to create the answer himself. So I try to encourage salespeople, get to a place, 1, where you understand what you're thinking so that you can actually start being creative with how you're changing that and guiding it so that you can become the guide and facilitator of the sale instead of reacting to the sale throughout each step of the process. I had to segue to that a little bit because I think that's an important aspect of what we do. I was listening to, and my experience has been, I love understanding how things connect and associate. If you look at the Bible, I have a background as a pastor and youth minister, and if you look at the Bible and if you look at science, they combine to create the same story. We just don't understand it that way. In science, there are 3 things that make up existence. And those 3 things are this. You have time, space, and matter. Right? In the beginning, God created. In the beginning, God created. And then there was all of this, and it was all good, right? So I'm not going through the whole process. They all line up. We can't avoid. These are laws of nature. They also play into how we are. And I'll do it this way. Time is associated with being. We experience our sense of being within time. And this is why I broke it down to be, do, have in there. In order for you to have what you want to have in life or in a sale or anything else, you have to be the person who can do the things to have what you want to have. And this was an important clarification in myself whenever I came to this understanding and the connection of being, doing, and having with the laws of nature. Because this is exactly how everything plays out. So, when we're looking at our mental models, this is all about being who we are, doing what we do so that we can have what we expect to have or would like to have. And it all plays out that way. When you're selling, and we're going to have a little fun with some of this as we go through it. When you're selling, it's the same process. You have to be the person who can do the process in a way that whenever you come to the closing, you'll avoid all the objections. It all starts with who you are and how you are whenever you approach it. That's why I say closing the sale is about your mindset. It's a mindset from the beginning. I do want to go over the three mindsets or mental models, if you will, that ensure you get a higher rating on sales and future sales. By the way, closing the sale is also not just about what's happening at this one. It's about how you're setting up for future sales. And it starts with these three mental models of closing the sale. The first one is this: make it personal. Making it personal is about serving your customer. Serving your customer or serving your client means that you're trying to satisfy their drive to get something. You're trying to help them improve themselves. You're trying to meet their physical needs, their significance needs, their love needs, their belonging needs. This is serving. And having a servant mindset means I'm here not to get what I can out of you, but to take care of you and meet these motives and these emotional triggers. That's where serving comes in. And it's a mindset of doing everything I can to make sure you're taken care of. The second one is making it purposeful. First of all, and this goes back to the serving, your clients are interested in some sort of freedom. All right, freedom from something that they had in the past or freedom to something for their future. Because that's what freedom is. And there's some aspect of that, and your job is to help them get that. And then I pointed out the 5 suggestions or 5 things to do. The last one was action. There has to be some type of action every meeting throughout the entire process. It's, okay, so what's the next step that we're going to take? We're going to set up another appointment. We're going to set up, in your case, another showing or whatever the step is. It's some sort of action. Being purposeful is 2 things. First of all, it's a win-win. Because you're serving your client, you're there to help them win. And this is one of the things that I love about real estate specifically, is you have buyers and sellers, and you could be the realtor for both or one or the other, right? As the realtor for the buyer, you're helping your buyer win. It seems to be the main focus. I haven't purchased a lot of houses, but I purchased a couple. My experience as a buyer was I want to get with my realtor who understands the entire situation, and that person then provides me the guidance I need to go through and find exactly what I'm looking for that's going to fit. And whenever I find it, I want them to be able to present the offer so that I get my win, right? Because it's all about me. On the seller side, the seller's doing the same thing. You're stuck in the middle. It's a little different type of sales process than some of the others because you're not competing against two poles in some others. In real estate, you have two different poles that you're competing before and that you have to bring together. This is where that win-win comes in, because if your buyer wins, the seller wins, and in your case, you win, right? And you're there to serve them. So if serving them, helping them win, you don't have to worry about your competing agenda. I had a salesperson I was talking with, and then he got upset because one of his clients felt like he was rude. And remember when we talked about communicating, and we talked about tonality and inflection and how we use our voice, things like that. For whatever reason, this customer and he did not click. And you have that. There are personality things that, for whatever reason, don't click. And so he was really upset about it, and was like, I don't feel like that person gave me a chance, which might be true. But as we're going through and we understand the 4 types of buyers and the personalities and how people clash, maybe we just need to accept that it's about them. It's not about me. That's where it comes to serving and helping the customer win. How can I help them win? Now, I'm sure you guys have stories about those types of situations, and I would love to hear ways that you either faced it, handled it, or got help through it. So I'm going to leave it open to you. I added colors in here because there are personality types that color relate to them. But they're not, that's not necessarily defined. The driver is the one who is very direct. Let's get it now. I want the information, but I want to move fast. Right? They're assertive, highly assertive, generally lower on the relational. I put people oriented, but it's relational. Right? Expressives are also highly assertive, but they're highly relational and they like to have fun and connect in that way. So they'll be a little more emotional, but high assertion. Right? The low assertion but emotional are amiables. Amiable people are the ones who, they love to tell you the story, but they always include emotion in the story. I've heard people say that they're all heart. They want to express themselves in a way that they can show you the meaning that they have in that, because that's how they connect, is through emotion. But they also, and the danger with all of these actually, but one of the things that holds amiable people back is they don't want to hurt someone's feelings. So they won't present things certain ways because they want to avoid hurting someone's feelings. Drivers come across as, can come across as arrogant. They can come across, which also can hurt the process. Aloof, uncaring. Expressives can be too energetic and we need to get down to business. Let's stop having fun. And that's one of their things that hold them back. The fourth one are analytical people. These are the ones that ask a lot of questions because they want all of the information. Right? So whenever you're in your situation, like you were talking about, whenever you're trying to serve your customers, sometimes you have to get really uncomfortable to help them be comfortable. And that's what it means to help it, to be that servant that I'm going to help you win. And for me to help you win, I have to get really uncomfortable. If you're amiable, expressive, or anything in this side, again, you're highly relational. Mm-hmm. So you want that emotional connection. Yeah. There's no emotion here. No. So you don't feel the connection. You're like, okay, I'm not connected with you. Yeah. They want information. This is task and information oriented. This is relational and emotionally oriented.
Next,
I am a high, and I say high because these are not like locked in stone. They're not rigid. They are dynamic. And we can change throughout these. And that's why I say you adjust how you approach it. It may be uncomfortable, but you can adjust it. And it is very dynamic in this, but I am a very high driver expressive. And I come across very much overbearing, overpowering, things like that. And I have to recognize that, because especially when I'm working with people who are not. Luckily I had some people that in my life that have helped me understand how to have, and one person in particular helped me with tact, because I didn't have any. I mean, I was just, look, this is what it is. I mean, why do I need to sugarcoat it to prevent hurting your feelings? I didn't understand that. And I was like that, and because I didn't understand all of this either. And I luckily had people in my life that helped me understand this, and then went through some training on this side of it. But it opened up a lot for me to be able to, one, change myself, but then also help other people recognize where they're at in there, so they can make those adjustments as well. Yeah, and that's really why all of this is why I created the process of this course how I did, because it all builds and circles back to each other. I don't think linear. If that makes sense, I do think in cycles. Plus I have ADD, so I'm all over the place anyways. And so I think in multiple directions, but what I understood throughout my experiences is that the sales process, although the steps of the process are linear, the process itself, whenever you get down to it on the human level, is a cycle. Which is why I did things and why I do it the way I do it in here. So, what else? Yes and. This is a fun one, and I want to do a little exercise. So we're gonna do an improv exercise, because this is one of the things with sales that can be really difficult for salespeople, is to improvise in the moment. Yes and having a yes and mindset is simply this. Yes, and we can do this. That's it. And it boils down to that. And here's where much of the struggle is. And I hear this all the time with salespeople. The customer will ask, can we do this? And they're like, oh, I don't think we can. I don't know. And they start to backstep. Right? Or the customer will ask a question, can you include that? Or can we do it this way? Or anything like around those types of things where it's out of the norm. And the salesperson begins to do yes, but. Yes, we can do that, but and we do this in life at times. Well, let's go on vacation. Let's go to Europe. Yeah, but it's going to cost $5,000. Right? Because that's how we end up getting conditioned. If you shift it and do a yes and, well, let's go to Europe on vacation. Yes, and we can set money aside right now. We can go next year and plan it out, and we can make payments on it and set it up. That way it's not a huge, you see what I'm saying? That's the yes and mindset. So it's a whole different mindset. So we're going to do a little exercise. This is the process of improving on a current situation. You're going to have clients all over the place, right? I mean, you have horror stories and you have stories that this was the easiest thing in the world. And you're going to have every mix in between. It doesn't matter what it is. If you have a yes and mindset, you can build on the situation. Customer's like, I didn't like this thing about the house. Yeah, I understand that. And we have this other side of it that you might. It's just a little bit of a shift so that you can build on something. Here's the beauty of it. Everything, and I put this in there, your client is closing you at the same time you're closing them. So whenever you have anything that might be considered an objection as you're going through the process, take it as an offer. Everything they say is an offer. Well, I can't afford that. That price on that is too high. Those payments are going to be out of my budget. Whatever the situation is, it's an offer for you to go, yeah, I see that, and we can approach it this way, and maybe that'll help offset it. I want a house in this location with 3,000 square feet, and it has to be less than $100,000. Unrealistic expectations. What was your situation? I want to be in. Yeah.
That yes and may not be going very far.
Yes, and you're out of your mind. So, but there's a way for you to build. You accept what they're saying to you as an offer for you to build on it and make that adjustment. Yeah, I can see that. And we can do it this way if you want to try that. I need to have a pool. Okay, yeah, I understand that, but we also have, we have the opportunity to create a pool in there. We can add this in with the customer or with the seller to create the opportunity for you to put a pool in. So there's ways for you to build on whatever they're offering. I think Brian Tracy is the one who said that everything that a customer says to you, whether it's positive or negative, is an offer for you to accept and build on. A lot of people like to do word track trainings on how to overcome every single objection. And there's nothing wrong with that because word tracks and having the right things to say at the right time are important. Understanding where that objection comes from is fear or anxiety, ultimately. Understanding that you can accept that as an offer to build onto. The price of that is way too high. Well, yeah, you're right. It is, because the prices everywhere are too high. Accept it as an offer to provide valuable feedback. I was listening to another, actually I think he's a billionaire. He was talking about what people say and whenever they have an objection or an offer, as I like to look at it, when they have an offer for you to build on, he says, yeah, agree with them. Look, that property is way too high. Yeah, it is. All properties are too high right now. I mean, that's just where it is. There's something wrong here. Yeah, you're right. And we can do this to fix it. Acknowledge and agree with what they're saying. If it's something that you can agree with. There's no reason to hide it because it's obvious. And then if you have that, you're not only just telling them and that's where this comes in, the mental models. We hear something from a client that contradicts what we are thinking or might see. And a lot of times we like to go back and say, oh, wait a minute, I don't know what to do. And we put up a wall ourselves. Having that yes and mindset allows you to agree with, yeah, that price is too high. And this is why. This is where as you're framing everything, and we talked about the framing last week, this is how, going through the entire process, you can literally go through and set things up so that you can minimize cutting your commission by providing the value that the customer is really looking for. And it's because of the yes and mindset. Well, this is wrong here. This is this. Yeah, you're right, that is. And this is how we can fix it here. That's where that product knowledge comes in, right? Understanding the market, understanding the product, understanding the situation, all of those play into that so that you can literally provide all of the value they're looking for because you're answering everything, yes, and we can do it this way. And you can literally set it up so that they see more of the value and less of the price. Because price, and I said this last week, price is never the real issue. If it were the real issue, you wouldn't buy a $1,200 or $1,500 cell phone. We buy them because we want it because of what we see value in. And it is outrageously priced. I mean, that is obvious. When they said my iPhone, because my previous one, I skipped a couple generations, I think. I think the one I had, the previous one I had was $700 or whatever. I was like, that is ridiculous. This is nuts. They say, well, yeah, this one's $1,000. I was like, what? Yes. And we'll set you up with payments only at $35 a month.
And then you'll just barely get it paid off.
You know what? That's a good idea. Let me do that. That's yes and. That's what it is. Here's a couple things, cognitively speaking. We focus on the negative, and it's difficult to not. You have to be intentional to set positive goals, to set positive things or outcomes in your mind. It is an intentional act. The other thing is you can't not think about something once you think about it. And Simon Sinek gave this as an example, and he's the one that said that. Try not to think of an elephant. Now that I said elephant, you can't help but think of an elephant.
Actually, I countered that, and I was like, I'm not going to think of an elephant. That's the rebellious side of me.
Yeah. So, and that's where, whenever I was talking about the 3 steps, you can literally change the way you think in 3 steps. I don't know if I went over this or not, but it is. I'll do it now because it's kind of part of all this anyways. If you are thinking either if you have a negative mindset or if you have something that you're struggling with in how you think about yourself, and by the way, I did mention this before, the voice of judgment. This is the inner critic that we all have. And this comes from outside of us, somebody telling us either we're not good at it, or we're not good enough, essentially is what the voice says. Or there's something wrong with us. That's the voice of judgment. It paralyzes people from making good decisions. Okay? This is a voice that does not come from us. This is entirely outside of us because we weren't born with it. In fact,
it can also make you not be active either.
yeah. And this is a lot of depression, anxiety, all comes from this. Obviously, there's clinical things, but non-clinical anxiety, depression, if it's not a chemical imbalance, comes from this. The voice of judgment is, like I said, the inner critic that comes from other people projecting something onto us. And we adopt it as our own, even though it isn't ours. And we live with it. And what happens is, you make a decision, it's part of this mental model makeup. You make the decision, you know what, I'm going to go try something. I'm going to sell a $10 million house, which would be great commission, right? I'm going to sell this $10 million house. But then as you start looking at it, oh, dang, that's kind of big. I don't know if I can do that. And you start backpedaling, right? That's that voice of judgment. That's what it is. It is not a voice that you created. It's a voice you adopted. Same with any other mental model that you have. You can literally change the way you're thinking about it. And you demonstrated it by saying, no, I'm going to think about a turtle. Let me think about turtles instead of the elephant, right? You can literally change it. And here, there's 3 steps to it. And these are really simple. They're not easy to do. I mean, these are very, very difficult to accomplish, but there's 3 simple steps. The first one is to be aware. You have to be aware that you have that voice, that mental model. You have to be aware of what you're thinking, why you're thinking it, where it's coming from, all of that. The who, what, where, when, why, how of what you're thinking. The second step is to reframe what you're thinking in a positive and plausible alternative. Otherwise, your brain will not accept it if it's not plausible. And then here's how I love to reframe. A lot of people have said reframe by just restating it in a different way. I like to completely reframe it by asking it in a different way. This one says, I'm not good enough. Be aware of what it is. I'm not good enough. The second one says, how can I get better? How can I be more? How can I be better? How can I sell a $10 million house? Because then your brain will start coming up with ways to do it. That is a plausible, positive alternative to thinking the negative or whatever you might be thinking. That's the second step, is to reframe it. And I love the reframing it with a question of how can I, or will I do this, or whatever way you want to reframe it with a question. The last one is, and the last step, I have a phrase that I heard someone say that I want to share, but it distracted me for a second. Okay, this is my phrase. Live into it. You're reframing it, and then you live into it as if that is the reality. And here's what I mean by that. And you've heard the phrase, fake it till you make it, right? It's been popular. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. Fake it till you make it. What they're trying to say is live into this new you, or this new reality of what you're thinking. I heard Myron Golden say, project it till you perfect it. Because projecting it, you're picturing yourself doing it. And if you are aware of what you're thinking, the negative or whatever, you reframe it in a positive and plausible alternative, generally as a question of how you can accomplish it, and then you actually live into that picture yourself doing it, then your brain begins to adjust and adopt that as reality, which means you then project your reality into your life. Not easy to do, and it's very intentional. You have to be very intentional with these 3 steps. But it is very simple. And it becomes a practice. It becomes a ritual for yourself, where you begin to recognize something that you're thinking and then reframe it and then project it. And I love that you put that leave positive notes, because that's a great tool. To a little sticky note. Leave it there. Did you guys watch Saturday Night Live? You'd be too young for this.
I used to, but not anymore.
Long time ago, there was a character on Saturday Night Live, Stuart Smalley. Google it, YouTube it, whatever. Stuart Smalley is hilarious, because it is, I am wonderful, I am beautiful, people like me. Stands there. That's what it was. And you bring up with that story, bring up something that's important about our clients, is there are times that our clients don't feel like they deserve to be successful.
Yeah.
And we can't change that in them.
No.
And that's part of all this is you have to, and that's what I mean by this, and I could have mentioned that too. You have to believe that you deserve to actually have what you want to have.